Hey, this is Justin. It is Friday morning, September 17th. Big day. 3 years ago today, I started my martial arts journey. Made a commitment with, hear the dog in the background there. Made a commitment. Here's some rustling in the leaves here as well. If this is the first time you're listening to something, this is probably the worst sound quality that you ever have, but that you'll ever hear. But the important thing is that we have the option right now, the opportunity just to be able to press go and to share our thoughts and be able to put content out into the world and let people respond back to it. So this one's going to be heartfelt, and hopefully the sound quality is good enough that it gets heard. So started martial arts journey 3 years ago today, September 17th, 2018. Made a commitment to train 2 hours a day for 5 days a week. I think it was for 12 weeks. With Coach Mike Robinson and a gentleman by the name of John Wong, and we got it started. We did our first day, and I got the call from my mom right afterwards that my dad had a rough night, and got the sense that it was time for me to go out to Las Vegas. He passed away 1 day later, and continued that training all 12 weeks. Tuesday morning, 6 a.m., the day before the day that he passed away, I went to the UFC gym in Las Vegas and just did a workout by myself. And by Wednesday morning, after that, I went on Wednesday morning to Extreme Couture and met Michael Hobby. I met Michael Hobby. He's a pro fighter. And the day after my dad passed away, I was in the gym training on a hip on that Wednesday morning. Thursday, I think we went to Extreme Couture so just went through, and then found Robert Lagaska and team and trained with them for a while, and they became my big brothers for a couple of weeks. We found, and then for my daughter, we found Mylan and Chris Angle, who helped coach her, and it's what it's got us through. I forgot about this. It's what it got us through those tough times. So left Las Vegas after about 2 weeks, came back to New York, started back to work. We had just opened up our innovation center on the Cornell Tech campus, Roosevelt Island, and we had a commitment. The vision of the place was the vision of the whole site was to have New York start to compete with Silicon Valley. That was Mayor Bloomberg's original vision. And we got up every single day and said that. Every single day, and believed it 100%. Because the more you say stuff like that, you start to believe that it's possible. And I think the access to that is conversation and bringing people in. And when we say things over and over and over again, we start to believe them. It gives us the conviction about what we start to believe. And then when we believe it, then that gives other people the power to start to believe, and then things start to happen. So believed in that vision. Thought it was going to be a 10-year journey, right? Really to get everything going. We didn't have a ton of. Didn't seek out a ton of support from inside of the company is probably the best way to say it. But that was, and the place closed down, right? That's what happens, especially with COVID and the place going down. But the vision and the work was still there. And what I had forgotten until this morning was, what I'd forgotten from this morning until this morning was I've worked every single day since my dad passed away, right? I took a little bit of time from work when I was doing training, but I worked every single day since then for the last 3 years, and that period of time, and it never felt like work. It never felt like hard work. It just felt effortless that whole time. So, and fast forward and just, it was vision work. We loved it. Had a place. It was like a little bit of a playground, and had a glimpse into what work could look like in the future. Second piece of that, dog's going a little nutty here. So second piece of that, about a year ago, got the call that my services were no longer needed inside of the company, which wasn't necessarily an unwelcome phone call at that point in time. Had an opportunity to start doing some consulting, did some facilitation, worked with some companies that I really believed in the mission, what they're able to do. Like, how do you, my passion is around, or my passion at that time change. My passion at that time was around, sort of bridging the gap between what's currently going on in the real world and a future state. So worked with a company called Nonfiction Research that goes towards or seeks or creates or looks for opportunities around emotional realism. And they do it in the public sector as well, but they also do it inside of large corporations. Like, how do we create the opportunity around emotional realism? Also, the tagline is, we'll put our mental health at stake to be able to create amazing work. And they create these beautiful presentations that get straight through to the subconscious mind. So I had an opportunity to do some work with them. I think the other significant piece got introduced to asynchronous voice message. Now, I've been doing my personal work, non-corporate work, asynchronously for years. And what do I say about this? Yep, did asynchronous work for years on Voxer, be able to chat with people. And the beautiful thing about any single conversation, especially when it's asynchronous, is people can opt in or opt out at any point in time. They can contribute at any time that they want. They can listen at any time that they want. They can not respond, or they can try. And when you have that dynamic of people not having to be someplace, they want to go more into the conversation. So, some conversations had legs, some conversations didn't have legs. So really saw the opportunity, a possibility around asynchronous work. But Voxer, who was the company, they weren't geared towards large corporations as opposed to servicing sort of us as individuals and community builders. And then in October or November last year, I discovered Yak, which was originally yelling across cubicles, yelling across cubicles, who was also just another version of asynchronous meetings, and with a bigger vision and with an opportunity to be able to liberate people. And created, a network of, 150, 200 people on the Yak platform, and was able to talk to 30 or 40 people a day effortlessly. I'm walking through the woods right now, creating this podcast, and it was never a mental load. So it's real. You can work every single day when there's never a mental load, or there's never a challenge that that comes into it. And then we made, when realization in May, made a decision that we'd be moving back to New York. And I had a couple of different things. I was like, all right, my kids are going to be going back to school, number one. Number two, it's going to be more expensive when we go back there, right? So it's not, the ups and downs of consulting income might not serve as well. And then something else happened. I facilitated an event at my last company, and I just had this nagging feeling that some of the work that we weren't doing is being done, right? So I started reaching out. I was like, let me find some consulting opportunities. Let me find some consulting opportunities here. That'll be great, right? Work 30 or 40 hours a week, and do some, like, a full-time thing, can start getting back into the mix at a larger corporation. I do have passion around larger corporations, and that's what I was doing. And nothing's emerged. And then, and I won't mention, won't mention any names specifically about currently what I'm doing or where I'm doing it. But I got a call from, like, one of the only people that was like, this is really the opportunity to go back. And a friend of mine during the last one was like, you need to do a hard job the next time. And my initial reaction was like, yeah, it wasn't, it wasn't like, it was another word. I was like, I guess this is what we're doing. Because, when the universe offers up an opportunity, I believe you take that opportunity, or the universe starts shutting down opportunities like that in the past. So when the right person calls, you jump and make it out and work. So it was interesting. So I went down for a couple of different reasons. Very high on crypto right now, and again, one of that's the stability of the income to be able to invest. So that was one of the earlier drivers of that. Also, number two, I just felt like there was more to give and potentially to contribute back. Like just some work that wasn't done. Started again, worked every single day. Which is natural, right? It's natural. I've worked every single day since starting, and that's what I've done, and that's what I did, and not for anybody's reasoning of mine. Today's the first day that I'm taking off in over 3 years. Now, I don't know if it's taking off. I'm reporting this piece of content. I'll probably, I'll check in with, a couple of other people, but we'll call it taking off. First day taking off. Had to force myself. Had to take a complete vacation day. Woke up this morning and have automatically gone to check email and chat 6 times. So I haven't responded back to anything, haven't looked at anything, but we have that knee-jerk reaction to be able to go back and look. Remembered 4 or 5 different things that were open loops that I was like, the company's not going to be able to survive today if I'm not there, right? So that all but I had to physically force myself to be able to do that. Now, once we start getting the freedom in play, right? Like now, once the mind starts getting released and start getting into the woods, start thinking about the future. And I am, big mission item, right? And it's coming out. It's coming out right now like a club, like on these different people's, but ways of work that actually work, for people. And I think there's a couple of different things, right? There's a couple of different things that to take into account. And so I can, how do I get this information, right? How do I get this information out to people? I just push play. I can't remember what podcast service I'm using here. I just push play and I'm recording immediately and I'm sharing this and I can share it with other people. I can share it internally. I could share it, I can share it with other people. It's immediately out there in the world, or I can just keep it to myself, right? So we're able to produce things very quickly if we're not necessarily concerned about the shine and polish that come into into the things that we create. And my other thing is most things get ignored, right? And you don't know, right? You've got to put, I think Gary Vee talks about it too. He says, a company's got to put about 2,000 pieces of content a day to see what people are actually starting to look at and pay attention to. And I think so much attention is put on getting things polished and getting them right and getting them correct that we don't get things out there to be able to get feedback. And it's hard, right? I'm 7 years into putting out messages like this, and it's still a little bit nerve-wracking to be able to just, go and play. I've done this for about 7 years. But I think that's we put things out there and we see what people respond to, and also don't have our egos attached to it. Like if nobody listens to this, it doesn't necessarily make a difference. So I think that is number one. Number two, there is there is a Zoom fatigue. It is something that is very real. I think in some larger corporations, it's very difficult to get away from, Zoom. And it's not even getting away from Zoom because the tools aren't there. If you remember, this morning, it's the knee-jerk reaction that we have for being able to work. So even if people know that there's a better way, we're not wired to be able to go into a different direction. But it's a conversation that I can't let go. I think this will probably be the mechanism to be able to make it work, right? And then see who bites on this conversations. But I think it starts with the Yak team has put out a Zoom Free Friday as a start, right? How many people can get in Zoom Free Friday? Or how many meetings can we start moving to asynchronous? Or how many meetings can we just keep canceling? What does it take to have all organizations that are working asynchronously? And I'm stealing this from a friend. I don't remember which friend it is, but the purpose of work should be done asynchronously. Relationship building is done synchronously. That makes sense. So one-on-ones, I think, are important, right? Relationship building conversations, I think that they're important, but actual work and moving things forward should be done asynchronously. Now, I'm excited. My company is going to be moving to Microsoft Teams. I do believe that is we'll call it the happy medium. If you add in full suite of Microsoft Teams with all the plugins in the work, and you add in audio messaging inside of Microsoft Teams, I think it has everything that you need to have a large organization to be able to function asynchronously. Internally, I'll talk about it internally. External stuff, especially client-facing stuff, not necessarily as much, but internally, I think it has everything that you need to be able to function asynchronously. So I'm going to keep this conversation alive. I do believe that there is an asynchronous, and this is all inside of a context of ways of working that work for people. So if I look at the way that I work, again, and the people that I wound up associating myself with, people who want to make change in difficult environments, those are the people that are subject to burnout, right? Are always sort of on the teetering of or on the brink of potential burnout. And one of those people, I don't think it's a matter of, I think the term gets thrown out there, hustle porn, which I don't like, right? I think there is some like, oh, we're going to hustle and showing off the hustle. And showing off the hustle. And I did a bunch of hours last week, more than I'm even proud to be able to say. But I'm not proud of like doing a ton of hours, right? I'd be proud if I did like 32 hours or 26 hours and really crushed it. It's honestly, it's 4 to 6 hours is really the amount of time I think that is required to do real work. Actually, let me say that a little bit better. Here's the system. Inside of the Art of Impossible, which is, I think, focuses more on individual results and not necessarily team results. But I think there would be a decent correlation if a bunch of individuals were producing amazing results, that you would get some team results. It is 2 hours of focus time each day, I think, is really the litmus test. That's it. It's 2 hours of like uninterrupted focus time every day where you can start to get into the flow. There's also some other habits that need to go into there. It's 6 hours of exercise each week, daily habits, expressing gratitude on a daily basis. Wow, as I'm talking about this, I'm realizing how close it is. And there's other things that probably amounts to, well, besides the exercise piece of it, there's social support, actually being out there and doing stuff inside of the community, having friends, like that's what social support means. And so it's probably about 30 minutes of work each day, and about 2 hours of focus time. But the challenge is focus time is very difficult inside of a meeting culture. It's difficult to almost impossible inside of a meeting culture in environment. And then if you the other challenge with meeting culture is that you got to do prep for meetings. So I'm thinking that the average meeting I attend, that I have like a vested, let's talk about this. Like if I'm creating the meeting, or if I'm like accountable, our team's creating the meeting. If I'm spending an hour's worth of work, it's probably individually, 3 to 4 hours of work that goes into preparing for that meeting. Now, here's the challenge. On the flip side of it, if I'm like attending a meeting, and if I'm not even invested in it, there's the context switching from going before the meeting to after the meeting. So even if you're going to a different meeting, there's a context switching component. So I would say every meeting you attend probably has about, let's call it 5 hours of potential lost productivity. And what do you do in a meeting? A meeting really is a lot of times to get on the same page. It's to get people on the same page. It's to disseminate information. So starting to mess around with a couple of different things. So number one, we do, and I'm two-headed about it. We started our jam sessions again back on Zoom. Because people are coming from different places. I don't like it for a couple of different reasons. One, it shows up on people's calendars. And even if you say optional on top of people's calendars, they don't necessarily, they don't feel that it's optional, right? It shows there as some sort of obligation. Like it gets through the subconscious as an obligation or something that needs to get done. I don't like that component of it as well. And then I don't like the synchronous component of it as well. So I think when we move to Microsoft Teams, we'll do two different things. We'll do face-to-face stuff, do live stuff outside, and then number two will be asynchronous on Microsoft Teams. So what do I want to say about that? So here's the difference. I get this. I can, so any sort of, and that requires really, doesn't require a ton of prep beforehand. There's usually a recovery period afterwards, especially if they, because I give 100% of my energy to those and 100% of the focus to it. There's a little bit of recovery that happens afterwards, and sometimes the conversations linger afterwards. Number two, what do I want to say about this? the conversation. Okay, where was I going with this? I don't think it's number 2. I probably said number 16 at this point in time. All right, we're 20 minutes straight into this conversation. And then is it? And then I think it's voice messaging. You've got to get voice messaging into the company. It's hard because I'm in a highly regulated company. And there's a lot that goes into voice messaging, right? There is the misinterpretation, there's the regulations. There's also the emotional safety about being recorded via voice, because voice allows you to let your guard down. Like where it's video, you're being recorded. You can be a little bit more guarded, but voice allows people to relax a little bit more. Which means there can be more regret about some of the stuff that they're saying is out there. So, right, it presents a emotional safety issue on the back end. But the availability of voice notes is a game changer, right? I've had a couple years worth of thoughts like logged inside of my head. Haven't recorded a podcast in a while. It took me 21 minutes at this point. I'll probably talk for another couple minutes here. It took me 21 minutes to get this out there. What I'll do, I'm going to post this. I'll probably post it on LinkedIn on the back end. I don't know who's going to listen to it or who's not going to listen to it, but people will listen to it. I can spend another 3 or 4 minutes, let's call it, getting it transcribed in Otter and having it turned into text. If I would have done this over video, the same thing would be available. I decided to do this on audio just because it's a little bit easier way than video to be able to share, and I still wanted to be paying attention to the puppy on the back end. So it's leaving it there. Inside of that's the brain dump to get it started. This is version 1.0 of this conversation. It will get refined and changed and altered, but inside of the conversation of creating ways that work for people, right? And meetings might work for people, right? People might thrive inside of meetings. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm not somebody who thrives inside of meetings and in sort of preparation for those meetings. I'm also I'm not saying that that's not available that's not what's there for everybody, but being forced into a meeting way of work that doesn't necessarily work for everybody. And I'm excited to have this conversation now, I think, because it's like I'm part of like a highly visionary team, a high performing team, and I was just having this conversation and being like, oh, this is actually real, and it is possible to create ways that work for everybody. That it is actually a possibility and something that can happen makes me very excited and optimistic. So if you've gotten to this part of the message, please reach out to me and let me know in chat. Thank you. I do appreciate you. I'll leave that one here. Have an amazing day.